Hi everyone, quite a quick one today I think. It's going to be sketching quadratic graphs. So there's a few things to remember when we sketch quadratic graphs. So as I said yesterday, quadratic is anything with an x squared in it. So in A-level we're not going to do a table of results, which you sometimes do at GCSE. So you could do like x and y, have -3, -2, -1, and fill in the y values. Instead what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at three things. We're going to find out where it goes through the y-axis, where it goes through the x-axis, and also the minimum point of the curve. So there's a few things to remember. The main thing is that a quadratic will either, if it's a positive x squared, it's going to look like that. If it's a negative x squared, it's going to look like that. So this is positive and this is negative. Okay, so the first thing I said is to find out where it goes through the y-axis. So the way we find out where it goes through the y-axis is we set x equal to 0. So if we do that, y equals 0 squared, which is 0. So therefore when x is 0, y equals 0. So 0, 0 is going to be that one there. Now because we know it goes through the y-axis at 0, it also goes through the x-axis at 0. Let's just double check that. So what we're going to do, to find out where it goes through the x-axis now, the x-axis is when the y-coordinate is 0. So I'm going to say that y equals 0. So we've got 0 equals x squared. Now, there's no way we can factorise this like we was discussing in yesterday's lesson on solving quadratics by factorising. So the only thing we can do is square root here. And if we do the square root of 0, plus and minus 0 is still 0. So the only time it goes through the x-axis is 0. And then we know that it's going to be a positive parabola. We call this shape a parabola. So y equals x squared is going to look like that. Okay, so let's have a look at the next question. This one's a little bit more detailed. So let's go for y equals x squared minus x minus 6. Okay, so the first thing we note is that it's a positive x squared, so we know it's going to be a smiley face, it's going to be a positive parabola. I want to know where it goes through the y-axis. So we're going to let x equal 0. So y equals 0 squared minus 0 minus 6. So 0 squared minus 0 just disappears. Then we've got this minus 6 on the end. So when x is 0, y is minus 6. So we put in that coordinate there. So we know this is where it's going to go through the y-axis. We know it's going to look like this. So we've got to find out where it goes through the x-axis. And then this turns into yesterday's video. So we're saying we want to solve 0 equals x squared minus x minus 6. So the way we do that is we factorise. So 0 equals x and x. I know 3 and 2 makes 6 when you multiply them. And you've got to use them to make -1, so it's going to be -3 plus 2. So the two solutions are x equals 3 and x equals -2. So it's going to go through the x-axis at 3. And it's going to go through the x-axis at -2. And the other thing that we've got to try and find is the minimum point. The whole thing, and we'll get on to cubic graphs at a different time, which are x cubed graphs. But for quadratic graphs, if it's just x squared minus x or plus x is plus a number on the end, we know they're going to be symmetrical. So the minimum point is going to be halfway between where it goes through the x-axis. So it's going to be, around about there's going to be a minimum point. A lot of people do the minimum point at where it goes through the y-axis, and it's a real common mistake. But here we've got to make sure that the minimum point goes a little bit further this way. So it's not the perfect sketch, but it doesn't need to be. But we want to work out what the coordinates are. So there's a couple of ways of doing this, and I'm going to go through both of them. What you can do is find the midpoint of 3 and -2. So if I do the midpoint of 3 and -2, the easiest way to do that is -2 plus 3 and divide by 2, which equals a half. So the x coordinate here is a half, and the y coordinate, you need to substitute in the x coordinate into that. So that's a half squared, which is a quarter, minus a half, so that's minus 2 quarters, minus 6. So a quarter minus 2 quarters is going to be minus a quarter. Take away 6 is going to be minus 6 and 1 quarter. Or minus 25 over 4. So that's it, that's the minimum point. The other way to do the minimum point is to do completing the square. Now completing the square was another one of my most recent videos. So I'm going to do completing the square for this. So I'm going to say that y equals, remember we half the number that's in front of the x. It's going to be x minus a half squared. Then we square this and take it away. So take away a quarter and then take away 6. So if we simplify that, that's going to be minus 6 and 1 quarter. Now what we're saying is we want to find the minimum point. Now by the minimum point, I want to know this is the minimum point because this is where the y coordinate is the smallest it can be. So we've got to think algebraically, why is this minimum point going to be minus 6 and 1 quarter? Now the reason being is that whatever we put into here, so whatever we put into x, we put in x is minus 1,000. So minus 1,000 take away a half is going to be minus 1,500. But as soon as you square a negative number, it's going to become positive. So that's going to be sort of million plus, and then take away 6 and of course that's nowhere near going to be the smallest value. So the way to make this equation here as small as it can possibly be is we need to make this thing 0. Because if it's anything other than 0, when you square it, it's going to be positive, and it's going to be something positive, take away 6 and a quarter. But if it's 0, take away 6 and a quarter, that's why minus 6 and a quarter is going to be the minimum point. So we think, what value of x makes this one 0? Well, a half. A half take away a half is 0. So that's why the minimum point is a half minus 6 and a quarter. Again, we're going through quite a bit here, so feel free to pause the video, rewind it, just to see if it can make sense. And on top of that, we've got one more question to do. In fact, no, we don't, that's it. So feel free to go back through that video. Again, ping me any questions that you need to. But good luck with doing the 7th sheet. Well done.